Welcome to Samsales and the perfect discovery call today. We are super stoked to get to do this. We are super grateful to Rob from the Insightly crew, fabulous CRM platform, by the way. For anybody that doesn't know Insightly, just a fabulous platform all around, and just really grateful for you being a part of this and letting us listen to your webinar and your gong recording today. So thank you for that. For those of you guys who don't know us, I am Sam McKenna. I am the CEO of #SamSales. I am joined by Missy, who is the head of our creative and does all of our beautiful graphics and the deck that you see today. And also by Paige, who is our head of marketing. And if you sign up for our newsletter, which comes out every Friday, and you laugh and thank the person for the great pop culture you're learning, you have Paige to thank for that. We're a sales training organization. We do everything from building brands for executives on LinkedIn to training on Show Me You Know Me, and all sorts of great foundational practices, also write sequences and pretty much everything in between. If you have questions around sales, we can probably solve them for you. So welcome. We're very excited to get started. A couple of things for today. We are going to go through a framework of what I consider our perfect discovery call. I think one of the pieces of feedback we always get from reps is, I've never had a great model of what good looks like for a discovery call. How do I start it? What do I do digitally? Is it the same thing as in person? How do I close the call? What do I do? So we're going to run through a very mini version of exactly what we teach to our almost 200 clients that we've signed in under 4 years. Holy camoly. We're going to go through that. You guys had some amazing questions that you sent in advance, so many that we will not be able to get through, but we're going to take a few live. We're going to take a few that were sent in advance as well. And probably around the 45 minute mark, we were going to introduce the very brave Rob to come on for a couple of seconds, give us some context on what we're about to listen to, and then break down as much of his call as we possibly can. Hopefully that sounds good. A few other things housekeeping wise. If you have questions, send them in. We'd love to see them. If there's a great theme, we'll follow up afterwards and send you some answers. As always, we give a discount to our SAM shorts, which are tons of subscriptions, learning everything from LinkedIn to sales to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I'm so passionate about it. So you'll see that pop up in the chat. Also, come say hello on LinkedIn. If you are brand new to us in our organization, please come follow me. You're welcome for the content. I'm sorry for the content and apologize in advance, but there's lots and lots that I share, but hopefully helpful to you. If you don't want to miss a post, make sure to ring the bell at the top of my profile on the right. And I think that is it in terms of housekeeping. If I forgot, Missy and Paige will keep me on track and send it in the chat. But with that, let's get started. So just by quick way of background, I've been in enterprise sales for about 16, 17 years now, was an individual contributor for 7 years, was an executive leader for the rest, and then started SamSales about 4 years ago. Over the course of that time, I've broken 13 different sales records. So I've done quite a few discovery calls, to say the least. And I think for me, there's just a lot that goes into it to humanize the process, to make it not robotic, to make sure we're making the best use of our buyer's time. And of course, to do nothing else other than show that buyer that we know them. Love this mantra here. One, I want to talk about a pre-call checklist. So I think this is super important, right? When we hear most calls start, I'm going to pop over to this slide real quick. When we hear most calls start, what do we hear? We hear, where are you based? Where are you calling in from? How long have you worked at SamSales? My favorite is when somebody asks me what brought me to SamSales. What brought me here? I started the company. But we start with that, right? So we show people that we don't actually know them, or we ask about the weather, which is really bad. Things we never want to do. Think about in advance of your calls. These are some things that you want to know. Now, really beautiful part here is you by no means have to know everything on this list, right? Other beautiful part is all they can see of what's going on in your world is what you're broadcasting on Zoom, which means you get to have literally cheat on the exam. It's great. Not that I've ever done that, nor should you. But you literally have a cheat sheet, right? A crib sheet of all of the questions and all the answers and everything that you want to ask and things that you should know about the buyer. But real quick, who is it that we're meeting with? Where do they live? How long have they been there? What city do they live in? Have they worked for previous clients before? Where did they go to school? What can we make small talk on with this person? I want you to also think about this research as if you were meeting this person in person at a conference, right? You wouldn't show up unprepared. Now, real quick, as you're looking at all this and you're maybe exhausted either by the speed of my voice or by the amount of information here, what I also want you to think about is that this is so important as a differentiator. people don't do this, right? They don't show up prepared. They simply kind of wing it on most calls. So it's a great way to do this. The other thing you might be thinking is, I'm back to back to back every single day. There's not a shot in hell I'm going to be able to do this. What I would tell you is it's so important, find time to do it. Either block time at the end of your day, the day before, and do it for your calls coming up. Do it all for your calls coming up for the week or in the morning before, right? I never want to show up unprepared for a call. Make sure in your CRM, check out if you use something great like Insightly, right? Has this client been attached to any previous records? Has this company purchased before? Were they a client and they churned? I'll tell you, even the very basics, when we help clients renegotiate their LinkedIn contracts or think about what they need, the amount of times that reps show up to call us and say, Sam, how familiar are you with LinkedIn Sales Navigator? And I'm like, not at all. I'm part of your insider team and I was an exec at your company before, but tell me more. How bad do you look, right? When we don't have that information, we don't know it in advance. And then their company, what do they do? 2 or 3 competitors? Do you work with their competitors? Anything notable happening in the company? Of course, we want to stay away from the not so great stuff, right? So keep in mind that if their stock is tanking or if they just had some kind of scandal or PR crisis, let's not mention that, right? Let's stick to the positive stuff. If you didn't grab a screenshot of this, make sure to do it. We'll move on to the next thing, but make sure you do this research in advance. Again, you might look at this and say, no kidding, of course, everybody should do this. And I promise you, the great majority of the calls that we're on, people do not do this in advance. And when we listen to those calls as one of our services at samsales, they definitely don't do this. Now, what's next? First impressions count. And to me, this is how we get the ball rolling on our call, right? How do we greet them when they show up? What is it that we say to them first? And for me, we go through a couple of things, right? The wrong way, where are you calling in from? Where am I calling in from? It's right on my profile. Where are you calling in from? Right? We're better than that. Show me you know me. Nice to meet you. We're just waiting for your boss to join. Oh my gosh. Here's what I want you to think about too. One, not only do people say this, right? So let's say Paige joins the call and they're like, Paige, great to meet you, waiting for Sam. And then they just sit there awkwardly and stare at her. If you follow Corporate Natalie on Instagram, you probably saw that awkward meme that she shared in that awkward video. If you don't, she's a fabulous follow. Go and run over there. But imagine also from Paige's perspective, how that would make her feel, right? She's there for a reason. So engage with her, start the conversation. Even awkwardly, they'll even say, Paige, great to meet you. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in a minute. And then they'll just stare at her and each other for a while. So please don't do that, right? There's a reason those people are on the phone, engage with them, or on the Zoom, engage with them right away. And then how's the weather in DC? It's sunny. How's the weather in Florida? Sunny too? Cool. You are showing your lack of executive presence by asking about the weather. We're better than the weather. Be better than the Gap. Any Crazy Stupid Love fans out there? Just me? Cool. Be better than this. Yeah. Okay, we got 2. Looks like your Photoshop. So fantastic. Kathleen Hilton, same. Oh my God, birds of a feather. But again, improve your executive presence. We're better than the weather. There's so much more to talk about. Now, let me caveat. For my friends in the UK who are like, but Sam, this is our favorite thing to talk about, right? Don't steal the weather from us. How about it? For those of you who are also thinking, well, something bananas is happening. It's snowing in July in Vegas. Can I not talk about that? Sure, have at it. Otherwise, be better than the weather. Now, when we think about this, right, we also want to think about one really important thing, which is our Zoom presence, right? So first impressions, how we greet the person. Imagine if I show up to my Zoom call the same way most reps show up to their Zoom call, which is, Missy, great to meet you. Thank you so much for making time today. I'm really excited to talk to you. And Missy's going to be like, wow, the enthusiasm is leaping off your camera. I can really tell you're stoked to have me. So just think about this. You by no means need to be the over agitated, exciting, yelling, definitely have no indoor volume voice kind of girl that I am, but somebody has given us their time, right? So the least that we can do is making sure that we're putting a smile on our face at the very least. Missy, great to see you. Can't wait to get started. We're just waiting for your boss to join. Just kidding, don't say that. But show a little enthusiasm. 2 quick tips here. If you are by yourself, one of the things that I do is I always make sure to look for the check mark when somebody pops up on my Zoom. Why? That means their audio is connected and they can hear me. My husband gives me a hard time. He tells me how many calls he knows I had today by how often he hears, hi, come out of my office, because that's basically how I greet every single call. But when somebody's connected to the audio, they can hear you, even if they don't have their cameras on, right? So if we are silent until their camera turns on, to me, it's the equivalent of like, I posted about this the other day. Somebody shows up at your door, you open it, and you stare at your friend for 3 seconds before you say hello. No, we would never do that. So why do we do that on Zoom? Engage them right away. If you are on the call with friends, right? If the 3 of us are on the call and we're waiting for one of you guys to join, the 3 of us are going to be talking. And when you join, we're still going to be talking. We're going to talk for 5 or 7 seconds. We're going to be talking about something very light, right? What we made for dinner last night, something we're doing this weekend, the TV show we're binging, The Bear. Anybody else? Right? We're going to be talking about that. We'll talk for 2 or 3 or 7 more seconds, and then we'll loop you in. So Paige and I are talking about The Bear. Missy joins, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that last episode, especially the forks one, holy cannoli. Missy, welcome. Oh my gosh. Paige and I were just talking about The Bear. Are you watching this on Hulu yet? Is everybody telling you you have to watch it? Now, just 2 quick things here. One, I want you to picture that same scenario if I was at a conference. Let's say Paige and I had gotten Missy to agree to take a meeting with us, and we were talking, and then we saw Missy approaching us. If we did what most people do on Zooms, we would say, here she comes. And then we would stare at her while she walks up, which would make Missy feel really welcome. Or we would do what we normally do in person. We would keep talking and we'd bring her into the conversation. Second, you probably caught something, maybe because I'm talking quickly, very slight that I think is important. I asked a question and then I repeated it a second time with kind of nonsense, just to make sure that I'm not putting Missy in a deer in headlights situation. So if I'm like, Missy, are you watching The Bear? And I stare at her, she's going to be like, the what? Huh? And then be caught off guard and then need a couple of seconds. So I'll be saying instead, Missy, oh my gosh, we were just talking about The Bear. Are you watching this? Or is everybody around you? Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Is everybody around you telling you should be watching this? I'm giving her just a couple of seconds to think. I'm probably saying it a little slower than I am today to make sure we get as much out as possible. But think about that, right? Just a great way to repeat the question, great way to use a little EQ. And again, make people feel like you're friendly. I could go on for a long time about one more thing here, but I'm just going to say, have your camera on. It is exhausting to be on camera all day. I am on camera all day. I can attest. It is exhausting. If you are on client calls, this is the one time I would encourage you to be on camera. Even if they are not on camera, just say, I would always use a quick trick of, I can't see you just yet, but can you see me okay? And usually you'll get them to fumble and turn on their camera. Or sometimes you'll just get someone who says, I'm not camera ready, I'm scarfing down my lunch, or no, I'm not coming on camera, which is really awkward. But I would stay on still. Visual cues, all sorts of things that you can do, right? You can make faces, you can show nonverbal cues, still engage with them. I'd highly recommend staying on. Yes, it's a little awkward. And yes, you're like, why are they not on camera and I'm on? I highly recommend you do it. Now, a couple of quick things here. As we're talking, right, and we're building rapport and we're using our show me, you know me, and we're trying to do those 2 or 3 minutes at the start of the call, right, until we get to the business portion, what I think is really important is that we also know and control the call. So one thing that we often see, right, is we might do some rapport building, but then when it comes to the end of it, we're not quite sure if it's time to move, or we're not really quite sure how to transition to the reason that we're here, which is to do a discovery call. And so what happens is usually 2 or 3 seconds of silence, which makes the buyer feel awkward. And then the buyer speaks up and says, so what should we do? I want you to just embrace this for a quick second. I want you to feel this amount of time, of gap, because we see it on, again, great majority of the calls. So if I say, no, that's a great point, Missy. That was 2 or 3 seconds. That feels like an eternity to me. And Missy's going to be like, what would you like to talk about today? Shall we get started? Where should we start? How can we make good use of our time? So I want to make sure to control that, right? Amazing point. You totally agree, Missy. So listen, thanks for making time. And then I'm going to jump into the call, right? So be really mindful of that. Be also mindful, people don't always want to make small talk. So if I ask Missy something and she responds with 2 or 3 words and a period, and then 2 or 3 words again and a period instead of a story or a question or things like that, read the room. Either she's not a great conversationalist, although she's a fabulous one, or she just doesn't want to make small talk. Get on with it, right? Read the room, use your EQ, right? But if you can, use a couple of minutes to just get to know them and build that rapport. Now, how do we actually move on to the business portion of the call? And then this is one of the things that I think is the most important. So to me, if there's nothing else you take away from the script today, which I will find somewhere along in our slide deck, here we go. What I would say is it's this. if there's one thing that you guys can do, it's changing this opening script. And one quick note, if you change the script, if you use anything from this call that was really helpful to you today, within the next week, by the end of Friday next week, if you post about it and tag us, we'll put you in a drawing. We'll give you access to any of our shorts completely free and on the house. That can be our sales shorts for $145, or it can be our LinkedIn sales playbook for $400. So feel free to take something away, and please share your success. We're always really excited to see who's doing what with what we teach them. So how do we kick off into the business portion of the call? First thing that we hear is this, right? Missy, that was such a great point. So listen, I've got a series of questions I just want to ask you and dig into, if that's okay. They're all really narrow and they're really self-serving. How does that sound? And Missy's going to be like, thanks, but no thanks. And I'll be like, well, okay. The other thing that we hear is, great. So Missy, what interested you in taking this call? We also hear reps say, so how can I help you today? To which Missy would be like, I don't like you already, right? We also think what interested you in taking this call can seem like an innocent question, right? I'm here to find out what interested them. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that they can say, you know what? I've been so busy. I can't even remember why we booked this. So here I am. And then you're like, oh God. And you get super awkward and super nervous. And then you talk about yourself for 28 minutes. Final thing, here's my point of view on your situation. We talk a lot about this on LinkedIn. Shouldn't you lead a discovery call with your insights, your point of view, show them that you're an expert? No, but sort of. So what we really want to think about, our one job to do on a discovery call is to solve the challenge that the buyer has. That's it. That is what we are here to do. Number one, not only does it let us unpack a ton of stuff about what's going on with that buyer, but two, it lets us qualify or disqualify the call as quickly as we can. If we start to talk about our insights and we start to talk about our point of view and what we want to accomplish, or these questions, what's it going to do? It's going to turn off the buyer. It's not going to let us temperature check, and it's going to focus on product or feature issues when what we really want is to figure out business pain and business challenges point blank. So here is my script for the 3 things that you should say at the beginning of a call. Number 1, Missy, that was an awesome point. Love that perspective. So listen, I could tell you a million things about samsales. I could tell you a million things about whatever your company name is, but I'd love to hear from you first. When you say this, right, consider that this might be an outbound call. This might be a referral call. This might be somebody who has absolutely no idea what you guys do. Let's say somebody comes to us at samsales and says, we're looking for somebody to teach us spin selling. Do you do that? And I'll be like, no, right? So I want to make sure to give them an idea, a few footholds of what we do, and I'll make it specific to that buyer persona. So if I get a chief marketing officer, if I get Chip House that comes on a call with me, who's the chief marketing officer of Insightly, I'm going to say, I could tell you a million things about samsales. 1, 2, 3, related to CMOs and what they care about. But I'd love to hear from you first. This is where you can lead with your insights and point of view. I know Insightly is going through this. I saw this recently published by you guys. I noticed that you've got a theme on the content that you're posting on LinkedIn, but I'd love to hear from you first. So I'm saying, hey, I've done my homework. If you want me to talk forever, I got you covered. And then I'm going to say, but tell me about your challenges, overall landscape, your team. Tell me all about that first, if that's okay. So what I'm really doing there is exactly what I told you guys before. I'm asking a question, I'm repeating it with nonsense, and then I'm asking for permission. If I say to Chip, tell me about what's going on with you, and then I stare at him, he's going to be like, what do you want to know? Or I'm going to say, I'd love to hear from you first. Tell me about your team, challenges, what's the overall landscape, initiatives for the year ahead. We'd love to hear about that first, if that's okay. Permission. What's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. 80% of the time, you're going to get the most beautiful thing, which is a deep sigh, and then talking for 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes. They're going to tell you everything that's going on, right? They're going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4 business challenges of what's occurring with them. 15% of the time, you're going to get people who say, you know what, we've used you before, as you know, because you've done your research and you told me in advance, or you come highly recommended. We got a few questions, then we can move on. 5% of the time, and my favorite thing for when reps say, I don't need to do show me, you know me. I'm awesome and I can wing it. And I'm like, cool. The higher you go in the executive ranks and the bigger the company, the more likely you are to get somebody who says, sure, happy to. What do you know about us first? Make sure you do that research, because if you come unprepared, or if you say, well, it's been a while since I've looked you up, which has happened to me on discovery calls, that when we're looking at vendors, we're going to say, you're not worth our time. You didn't care enough about this meeting to do your research, right? You're unprepared. I'm going to go to a rep that is prepared. Really important. I'm going to go back here real quick in case anybody missed the screenshot. I promise you, use this script and your calls will change. The trajectory, the amount of information, the business pain you will get instead of somebody showing up to talk to you about a widget will be amazing. A few more things here. When they start to talk, list bullet points. I don't expect you to listen to every single word that they say, but they might say something to us at samsales like, listen, we have a lack of sales process, our discovery calls are also really hurting. Call 1 to call 2 is at a 6% conversion rate. Now, real quick, super, super important why I have my camera on. If somebody tells me that their conversion from call 1 to call 2 is 6%, that's a 6, singular. If we think about that, I'm going to make a face, right? I'm not going to interrupt, but I'm going to make a face so that person knows that I know that that's not a great thing. Why am I highlighting this? Because when reps are listening, the most often thing we see is this. And we're like, are you listening to me at all? Right? It's like a really bad date. So make those faces. Do not interrupt. Let them go. I also highlight this because most reps interrupt at the first thing they hear. Sales process, we can help you with that. And then they talk about themselves for 28 minutes and we all want to jump out of a window. So shh, Rich coming from me, who never stops talking, bite your tongue, listen, wait till they're done. And then the great part, outside of that deep sigh, the most magical part is at the end when they apologize for talking so much. Sorry, oh my gosh, I could have talked forever. Whew, hopefully that gave you a lot of information. That was beautiful. And now I know exactly how to sell to you. Thank you so much. Don't say that part. That's just our inner thoughts. But list those bullet points out, right? Lack of sales process, 6%, right? When they are done talking, this is your chance to say, this was amazing. I have about 1 million questions for you. Can I go back up to the very first point you made around lack of sales process? You bet. These are the things that I want you guys to keep in mind with this. I'm going to scoot over to this slide real quick for you. We want to ask a question. Can I go back to the first thing that you said? Lack of sales process. Can you tell me more about that? Sure. We really need to focus on the foundations of sales. And, we just feel like the day-to-day simple stuff is missed. Most reps will start to do this. They will start to answer that issue. Great. This is how we can do this. This is a program we have. Great. We don't want to do that. We want to actually ask an active listening question on top of that. Real quick. Active listening, what this means is you're asking a question, getting an answer, and asking another question on top of that related to that answer. It shows you're present. So if I say to my husband, how was your day? And he says a riveting answer of, it was busy, 3 words. Where the hell do I go with that? If I then say, sorry, what do you want for dinner? I'm selfishly focused on myself, right? I'm always focused on meals, but that's another story. Instead, consider also that you might get clients who give you riveting answers like, it was busy. And you're like, well, shit. So why was it busy? Is it this time of year? Did something happen this week? Is something going on, right? Think about how to make conversation. It's kind of like when you meet those people at a party and you're trying to make conversations and they give you one-worded answers and you're like, dude, give me something. I'm really trying here. This is a great skill set to learn. So ask an active listening question, right? Tell me about the sales process. Are you missing things about like this, or is it like this? Is it emails? Like, what is it that's really a struggle? This is where they start to unpack stuff. When they give you that answer, kick in with storytelling. Perfect. We see this all the time. I heard this recently. You remind me of a client that looked exactly like you. They've been working with us for 6 months and here's what they look like now. We want that buyer to go, that's exactly what we look like. And that's what I want now. We are going to try to do that as often as we can, right? After we get that enthusiasm, we're not going to belabor point 1 unless it's a really, really important point. And unless it's something the incumbent doesn't have, we do, and we know we can kill it with this one thing. Instead, we're going to move on to point 2, right? They're going to say the enthusiasm. They're going to say, I want that. And you'll be like, yeah, listen, let me ask you about point 2. You said, was it 6% of your discovery calls convert? Did I hear that right? Yes. When we do that, what are we going to do? Rinse and repeat if we can and get that. I want that. If you can get a buyer to go twice on a call, 3 times on a call, it doesn't have to be a perfect science, but if you can get them excited enough about the true challenges you can solve and the stories they can remember, not the data, no one cares about the data, the stories, they're going to tell you how to close the call. You're not even going to have to do anything for next steps. They're just going to say, Here's what I want to do. And here's everybody to multi-thread. And here's what our buying cycle looks like. And you'll be like, that's so great. Thanks so much. Again, changing just that one script at the beginning and then trying to follow this model really helps. I want to mention one other thing. Question, I'm lying to you, two other things. Question behind the question. If you have not heard this concept or heard me talk about it before, it's just to tell you that when you get a question, that's usually never the question. What do reps do? They answer the question and then they say two really, really painful things. Does that answer your question? Condescendingly and excitedly because they just answered your question. Or even worse, they say, does that make sense? Walt Disney World's most popular question is, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? If you were like 90% of sales reps, you're saying 3 o'clock and then saying, does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. Parade's at 3 o'clock. Thanks. If you were like the other percentage of sales reps, you were saying it's at 3 and I have some more things to tell you about that, but can you tell me about why you're asking? Ask why they're asking, understand what's behind there, but answer first. Yes, no, maybe, it depends. And I can tell you more about it, but tell me first about why you're asking. Second thing, when they do ask a question, don't get happy ears, right? Understand what is it that they're actually asking. That treasure trove of information behind it is everything. You'll also figure out if this is a selling point or not. If somebody asks samsales if they have an app and I say, we do, and I talk about it for 48 minutes, and then they say, it's not really a need to have, and we probably won't need it for 5 years, but thanks for that. And I'll be like, you're welcome. And then I've wasted all that time. Yes, we have an app. I have more to tell you about it, but tell me a little bit more about it first. Not a need to have. We might not need it for 5 years. Just want to know. Or the incumbent doesn't have it. It's costing us millions of dollars. Our reps hate us. This is huge for us. Great. Punch the gas on that point. Now, closing the call. How do we move on to the next steps, right? The most important thing you can do, number one, is solve a challenge for that buyer. Ask yourself as you end the call, what is the challenge that they have and what can you do to solve it? The majority of calls we listen to, we go back to the rep and we say, what was their issue? And they say, I don't know. And you're like, okay, good use of time. We have to know what their issues are. Why did they show up? The second most important thing you can do is make sure that from call 1 to call 2, you get more people on the line than the first person or 2 people or 3 people you spoke to. Multi-threading as early as you possibly can is vital. That means if I'm speaking to Paige and she says, this is amazing, what do we do next? I am desperately trying to get Missy or other members of her team on the call. How do I do that without sounding salesy? Paige, this is incredible. Thank you so much. Here's what I think would be a great next step. Why don't we do this? I'd love to give you a tour of our technology, show you around our platform, and talk about how this can specifically apply to what you shared with me today. How does that sound? That sounds like the most amazing thing I've ever heard, Sam. Great. I thought you'd say that, Paige. Let's do this. I'm going to see if some of the people on our team can join as well. I think there'd be a great value to our call. If it's a really important call, if you have a super senior buyer, if it's a massive opportunity, if there's urgency and it's a lot of money, start to multi-thread on your side. It's not just you to them, it's your organization back to them as well. And then I'm going to say, I'll send an invite around accordingly. Who else do you think would benefit from this on your side? Or who else would want to see this before deciding if it's right for Insight? What I'm doing is I'm changing the question of, hey, who else is involved in the buying process? Who's the decision maker? And I'm finding out how to multi-thread as quickly as I can. And I'm also making it customer centric. So a few really important things there of just how to make sure you multi-thread. If Paige tells me there's no one else, I'm the decision maker. A, we know that's not true. B, at samsales, we're a 13-person company, right? We're not an Exxon by any means. I'm still relying on my team before I make decisions, right? Unless I'm spending $3. And then the other thing, it triggers us, right? Have we not built trust? Is there something why that person's being a gatekeeper? Is there not really an opportunity here like we thought? Are they not, do they not have enough relationship capital internally to help us? There's a lot to uncover in that one thing. I'm going to tell you one more thing, and then I'm going to switch to Q&A. You'll notice one thing in here that might even be in the Q&A, and I haven't seen it yet, but I didn't set an agenda. And this was a question that we got in advance as well. Some of you have heard me make this joke before, so forgive me. And just if you could laugh at the same time, that'd be great. I think setting an agenda on a discovery call is akin to setting an agenda on a first date. So imagine this, right? Paige and I go on a first date. I'm very excited. And I sit down, I'm invited Paige, and I'm like, Paige, I'm going to tell you about myself. You're going to tell me about you. We're going to see if we like each other. And if things go well in this date, we're going to schedule a second. What is Paige going to say to me? She's going to say, no shit, Sherlock, which is basically what our buyers are thinking too, right? Set your agenda in advance. Do not, for the love of God, waste time explaining what you are going to do that we already know you are going to do here. You can set it in the email in advance. You can set it in your invite in advance and make it clear. Paige, can't wait to meet you. Really excited to learn about your challenges, what you're looking to solve for. Would love to hear a little bit about that and then see how we can support you one way or the other. That's it. Conversational, non-robot-y, non-BANT-y, budget, authority, need, timing. None of that. You're just having a conversation and you're using the very, very, very valuable 30 minutes on this call to figure out their challenges instead of state the obvious. Last thing here, where's the demo? We do not demo on a discovery call. A discovery call is our chance to get to know somebody, challenges, understand what they're here for. You may need to show peak of something, right? Maybe they're like, oh, this is such a frustration. And every time we switch from this to this, this breaks. And I'll be like, you know what, let me do this. I want to schedule a demo. I want to take you through a tour of our technology. I want to just show you one really quick thing and the visuals of this, because I think you're going to love it. Let me share my screen, 3-4 minutes tops, right? Get them excited enough to say, this is amazing. And then hopefully bring other people to the call. Save yourself the time on that first call. Do not do a demo. Why? One, you're just wasting time. Two, we want to get them excited enough on that discovery call so that you frankly, lazily only demo once, maybe twice, right? Let's get 6 people to look at your demo one time, not to demo a little bit to this one person and then do it again for the rest of the cruise, right? Some easy things to think about there. Okay, and take a breath. That probably never thought it would happen, but here we are. Paige, I'm going to pass to you for some questions, and then we're going to queue up Rob after that. So let's take quick questions for 5 or 10 minutes, whatever we've got on our docket.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a couple people that want to ask live. So while we get Matt teed up, I'm going to ask one of the anonymous questions.
Cool.
Okay. How do you bring in the executives or decision makers involved without hurting the ego of your point of contact?
Great question. So I think this is why multi-threading early is really important. So asking that question and saying, who else would benefit from this? Who else would find value in this? Who else would want to be a part of this before deciding if it's right for you? I think sometimes we forget we're here to collectively make something happen. We've got something to sell. They've got a challenge to solve. We're coming together, right? So if you think about this, and if you're talking to somebody, you can say, like, you seem enthusiastic about this. There's lots that we can do, right? We can solve all your challenges. How do we make this go as fast as possible for you, right? When you kind of change your lens to thinking it's you guys working as a team, right? You're probably going to need your boss to approve some kind of discount. They're probably going to need their boss to come in and give approval of some kind. How do we make that go as fast as possible, right? You're in cahoots together, if you will. I think the other thing is, and this is something I think that just takes an art and a science and some experience, start to ask questions that they can't answer at their level. When we focus on product and feature issues, right, we're going to talk to who we're going to talk to because they're going to know the answers to our questions. When you start with a script, like we talked about at the beginning of the call, you're going to get to business challenges. Hell, you might even get someone who's like, I have absolutely no idea what our business challenges are because I'm a, I don't know, early stage manager and I can't answer that question. Cool, who can? But start to ask some questions, right? Higher level questions. If they're senior director, SVP, EVP, cross-functional partner was on the call, what would you ask them and say, do you have any idea about how this works from a technical perspective? No, we should invite that cross-functional partner on the call next time. So ask them that stuff because they're going to say, you know what, I don't know the answers to that, but you know who would? I'll see if they can join our call. And you'll be like, fabulous. Thank you so much. But if you ask who's the ultimate decision maker, they're going to give you a few choice fingers and then probably roadblock you. Matt, on that note, how's it going, man?
Best day ever.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Because of this webinar?
This is one of them. Webinar definitely made this a fantastic day, but
see, I only asked you one question. If I had repeated it a second time and given you some time to think, maybe you would have given me a more enthusiastic yes answer, but we'll go with it. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. 2 quick questions for you. Number one, you'd mentioned, the balance when you come into the conversation of kind of that upfront banter, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that we're not asking the question like, where are you calling in from? What are you doing? To show that we've done our research. The challenge that I've seen many reps struggle with is the how long, right?
Yeah.
I know we didn't really get into that, but how long should we stay there if it's one person versus 5 people? How do we balance that on a discovery call? And I have a follow-up to that as well.
Fabulous, fabulous question. I think a few things here. So sometimes you also need to gauge who you're talking to, right? There are titles we know that love to talk and go on forever. And we're like, we really need to nip this in the bud and get to the point of the call. There's others where if I'm talking to the truly my core decision maker, budget holder, et cetera, I will talk to them about whatever the hell they want to talk about for however long they want to talk about it. I want to give you a quick example that I think is really important. We tried to crack into Morningstar years ago. We finally busted through the walls through relationship selling. And literally the person, his name was Oren, said to us, the only reason I'm taking this call is to make them go away. And we said, we'll go away, just take the call. When we got on, my rep Rachel was like, how's it going? And he's like, I'm really sorry, I'm tired. My partner and I just adopted a baby and we have no idea what we're doing. 28 minutes in the call, they didn't talk about work, right? And what most reps will say is like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but congratulations. Hey, so can I tell you about my platform? Instead, she was like, tell me about it. And after 28 minutes of talking about being a parent and giving all kinds of tips, right? He's like, we haven't even talked about this, about your platform. Record-breaking, multi-million-dollar, multi-year deal. Read the room, read the person, figure it out. The other thing that I would say, at most, right, 2, 3, at least at a minimum, I'd say 2 or 3 minutes. Be mindful too of what they share with you. I just posted about this on LinkedIn. One of our clients, Dan, came on the Zoom and said, sorry, it's really loud in the lobby. My daughter's here for a soccer tournament and I'm traveling. Most reps, no worries. Let me tell you about samsales. What I did, no worries. What's a soccer tournament? Where are you guys traveling? What's it all about? Come to find out he has quadruplets. Did everybody just cringe and just sweat a little? Same. But we got to know all this information. We probably talked about it for 11 minutes. Do I want to talk about samsales the entire time? You bet your buns I do. Do I really care about what's going on in their lives? Yeah. I just want to know them as a person, right? So I think read the room, but also just show some interest in others. Like they'll appreciate it. And sadly, you'll be different than what they normally got.
Right. And then I guess my follow-up to that is those follow-up questions. You talk about staying in the moment, listening to what they're saying. But I also heard a bit about the why, right? Getting the why behind why they're saying that. I've heard and found myself that why is a very triggering question because it can put people on the defensive, right? Why did you do that? Why did you go down that path? Why did you take that? Do you have other ways of kind of framing that besides tell me more or describe to me how? Are there other ways you suggest that people, especially newer in their career, when they're engaged in discovery calls, to kind of shift from the why and turn it into something that's much more collaborative or more engaging?
I think this is also an amazing question. It's something either you're a great conversationalist out of the gate and that's how you were raised, or this is something to practice. I would say for anyone else that's on the phone for enablement, this is something great to focus on. People who tend to be around 35 and back communicate in a very different way. There's tons of data and articles about it. And making conversation, especially for people who are new to the workforce in a business setting, might be completely new as a skill set to them. So work on that. If you also hear yourself saying, I don't know how to do this very well, practice this. Peers, leaders, sponsor, whoever. What I would say is, one, positioning and semantics are everything. If you look up hashtag semantics matter on LinkedIn, you'll find a bunch of posts that I've made about it. But even just saying something like, let's say that I think that's a challenge, right? We hear that as a challenge all the time of ways people do that. Is there a reason why it was set up this way? Or was it set up this way before you got there? Simple framing to be like, it might not be you that made this really terrible decision to do XYZ, but to make it softer so it doesn't seem like you're accusing them, attacking them, or you're like, well, that was a bonehead move. Why are you guys doing that? One other thing to just note on that, your positioning and the language you use needs to be authentic to you. So a rep of mine who once heard someone say very confidently and whatever, Matt, how long are you going to let this go on for? And succeeded with that. When he used it, the prospect blew a gasket and we had to do some damage control there. So make sure that what you say is authentic to you and that you don't lose the client over it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Hi, Anita. We'll take your question before moving on to Rob. How's it going?
It's going really well. Happy to be here. By the way, I have to say that the discovery call Sam short that you have that you can purchase, well worth it. Like it really helps fill in some of these gaps. I was hoping you would promote it at the beginning. I was like, no, missed opportunity. So I'm doing it now.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Your discount code and go over there and grab it.
Your Venmo's on the way. Thanks for plugging it for us.
So my questions really quick, multi-threading. So
Yep.
I always get the champions in. I work with customer success leaders of SaaS companies, decision makers, CFO, CEO, they roll up, either it's chief revenue officer, sometimes VP sales. So I have no problem with, asking who the decision makers are. In fact, I usually say most companies, when we take them to the second call, these are the people who tend to show up, something like that. My challenge is, how do I support them to reach out to these people? Because they're rolling up into, generally sales, CRO, and they may or may not have a relationship with the CEO, the CFO to be able to do this. How can I support that process?
I think just work your chain of command. I think there's a couple of things here. Work your chain of command. So if we're talking to a senior director and we're like, hey, we need your CFO on the line, they're probably not going to have the relationship capital depending on the size of the company. If we're talking about a GE, definitely not. If we're talking about a samsales, they'll have access, right? I guess I sort of am the CFO, but anyway, God forbid. The other thing that I would just say, right, is like, if you are the senior director, work with the VP, start asking those questions, then the VP might have access to the CFO. Also, use your relationship to skip around. We recently worked with an organization, right, where we know that kind of the middle layers of our decision makers are being exited out of the business. And so I'm like, how do we get to the CRO? So I look to see who the CRO knows. Do I have any relationship capital with those individuals? And can I say, I've got to figure out how to politely navigate to the CRO. Could you maybe send them a note and say, I just saw you were working with samsales. Have you met Sam? You guys should connect. And then I can be like, oh my gosh, well, this person was nice enough. It was so great to meet the CRO. And then I've got the relationship without looking like I've directly gone ahead. One more thing, use your executive team to connect, right? So if you, I think you own your own firm, right?
I'm a person of one. And that's my second question of, how do we bring multi-thread our team when it's just me? So this is my second question all rolled up into this one.
Yeah, a little tougher when it's just us. We are the multi-thread, right, with different hats. I would say show up with your nose and your mustache one day. But for those of you guys who work for a little bit of a larger organization, grab your leaders and say, I'm going to invite our head of account management. I'm going to invite our head of CS to join, because I think it'd be great for you to hear about what the relationship would be like when you come on board. Would you be willing to grab yours? We would love to exchange. If they're continuing to gatekeep you, skip level across against your boss, right? Obviously communicate with your boss, but then skip level and say, I just can't get executive matching because this person feels like they make all the decisions. Could you reach out to your counterpart there and say, I know our teams are having a great conversation. If I can do anything to help, would be great to connect. Happy to get on a call and strategize anytime. And then if you get yelled at, you can be like, oh my God, I had no idea. Now I'm just telling you guys to lie, but you got to be strategic in the way you do these things. Thank you, Anita. Lovely to meet you. And thank you for joining.
Thanks a lot. See ya.
Thanks. Good to see you. Rob, without further ado, we're going to jump into your recording. But for first, can we just get like some kudos for Rob for being so brave to share his gong recording with us today and putting himself on the line? You're awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, for sure.
Yeah. All right. I've frozen you at the perfect spot, and you're welcome, my man. Tell us a little bit of context here. So what's the background for this call? What should we know about it?
Yeah, so this was an opportunity that got passed to me from one of the SDRs on our team. And it was someone who was coming in looking for all of the products that we have to offer for a new business venture.
Okay.
One of the things that, I re-listened to this call again, one of the things that I think, I used to do a little bit more than I should have was emphasize selling the platform a little bit more than kind of trying to dig into the pain. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about this.
Cool. Can you, so you were an account executive at Insightly, yeah?
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing discovery calls?
I think my first discovery call was in October of 2022. So at the previous company that I worked for, we kind of blended the two together. We didn't actually separate the calls out. So yeah, this was in January of 2023. So it was about 3 months after doing my very first call.
Cool. I will say, having listened to this call a few times, having gone through to make some edits to it, just for you guys to have a little bit of speed up for those of you who are listening, I will say much more good things to point out than opportunities for growth for Rob. A really good job, really interesting to see some of even the language that he uses that we talk about all the time. I don't think Rob was following me on LinkedIn before, so it's not like he had a cheat code for this. I will also say, I think part of what makes Rob's presentation better than the majority of what we see is that he just uses his gut instinct and wildly his brain. It's not a robotic conversation. It's not, thinking about pattern interruption and upfront agendas and all these really salesy things we talk about. It's just showing up to have a genuine conversation. I was going to say one more thing there, but I think that's it. So this was already passed on from basically an SDR, BDR. You had some notes and then dived right in. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
I'm going to hit play. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio, and then I'll pause every time we've got an opportunity to talk about something.
Especially as you scale, you want to integrate. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Just getting rolling.
Perfect. Yeah. Where'd you say you're calling in from? I believe I heard Florida.
We believe we heard Florida, right? So it is Florida. I think you can also, there's a little bit of play here where people can be like, well, what if they're not in Florida right now? That's okay. Just assume they're in their home base and they can be like, no, I'm traveling. And you'll be like, cool, where? And show some interest, right?
Florida?
Yeah, Ponte Vedra, Florida.
Nice. I'm assuming the weather is good there right now.
Yeah, lovely, cool weather.
That's okay for a slight reason, but let's see what happens here.
You're in Atlanta?
No, I am in central Canada, and it was negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit the past week where
the middle of summer. Who else is cold just hearing that? So I think we're getting nitpicky here, right? But like, just think about this. Like, I think it's okay to talk about the weather. Raise your hand if you have been in negative 25 degree weather. We got one in Rob. We got a few. Oh, Chip. Okay. We got a few. I hope to not, although I fully support Canada and where you live, Rob. I think this is just a good way to build rapport, right? And to say, can I tell you where I wish I was instead of negative 25 degree Canada right now? I wish I was in Florida where you are. Although, and then we can continue on with the rest. This is nitpicky. There's a very slight thing that we can do to change. I think totally appropriate to talk about the weather otherwise.
So it's a real contrast from where you probably are, but we're going to head down to my partner's parents have a place in Palm Springs. I can't wait to get down to somewhere warm, but
Palm Springs is this time of year.
Oh,
I'm just going to point it out because I think you can hear it for just a beat, right? Like, he did exactly what we talked about, controlling the call, right? He made his kind of final, there was like a half-second breath between him saying that kind of finish about Palm Springs. And then, even though Patrick kept talking. So let's tune in.
For sure. It's a pleasure to connect with you, by the way. Do you mind if I keep my camera on for the call?
Yeah, no, sorry. I just started with this company, so I've got a loaner laptop that doesn't have a camera. So my apologies. I'm waiting for no worries. My good computer to get here. But yeah, please keep it on. I'd prefer it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So again, I'm going to keep my camera on. He used a different language, right, Rob? You used different language than I did, but I think basically the same thing, right? Like, can you turn your camera on? Just said in a different way. I will also say, what do we think, demeanor wise, anything you're picking up on your facial expressions or anything there based on what we just talked about?
You're asking me, sir?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Yeah. So I was a little bit thrown off. Like I always find that when someone doesn't have their camera on, I can't read them, right? Yeah. So it sets the tone for the call. But I didn't even notice it. You can see it in my face. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say nervous, but it's definitely more beneficial to be able to see the other person.
Completely. I agree. It's frustrating. And then also sometimes like I think you kind of picture somebody's voice and then eventually they're like, oh, my camera's working. And you're like, that is not what I pictured you'd be looking like or where you would sit there. And then like keeping a poker face is also awkward. I will say like, I think just demeanor otherwise, right? Think about small smile, small change there that can really impact the experience for the person. Do not need to be overly energetic, just a small thing. To me, it looked a little bit like you were looking at your notes too. Like you were like, what the hell am I here to do? Which might be exactly what you were doing. But just like, again, emphasis on prep in advance. Cool, let's rock on.
I wanted to ask before we kind of jump into things today, do you have a hard stop in 30 minutes?
No, not really.
So I think this is something that we're taught to do in early days. Confirm the amount of time that you have with the buyer. Don't do it. This person's got 30 minutes. We know they've got 30 minutes. Try to be respectful of that. Also, it gives us breathing room. If you are back to back to back every single day, I really want to cram as much as I can in 30 minutes and then get the hell off the call as nicely as I possibly can say that. So try to stick within your 30 minutes. He said no. So now we feel like, okay, we have 75, 90 minutes maybe that we can talk or, however long. I would say just try to stick within those parameters. I think maybe just a little bit dated, not a make or break, but to me a little dated that we still confirm that. Cool.
Okay. All right.
Good actually until the top of the hour.
7 hours from now.
Okay. So just to lay kind of a quick agenda for today's call, what I typically like to do is start off by kind of recapping what I heard on the call with my colleague Ethan. From there, digging a little bit deeper into your use case. Now, typically, the reason why we kind of like to structure things that way is because we deal with so many different companies, right? And I want to show you a product demo that's very tailored to kind of what you're looking for. It sounds like from that call, you have a clear vision.
So just reemphasizing, right? We can do this all in advance. Here's what I plan on doing in our call. I'd love to dig into your use case. I'd love to tie the notes I heard from my BDR. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what your challenges are. And then what I'd like to do after this call is find some time, if there's a great fit, to book a demo, take tour of our technology. Just one thing you might have heard, right, is I try not to say demo and I try not to say presentation. If you hear those words and you want to jump out of a window, you're not alone. So just a small change in semantics can really make a difference there. And then we can just jump right into the call, right? So 2 minutes in so far, just a couple of things that we can change to get started even a little bit faster.
For how you want this thing to run, right? From what I heard, you've been involved potentially in implementations in the past, some good, some bad. So it sounds like you really know the way that you want the systems to sort of interact. Now,
just going to say, this might seem so obvious what Rob's doing. This rarely happens. We rarely have effective exchange of information between our BDR and then the AE. So one of the most frustrating things buyers will tell you, and for those of you who have gone through this process before, you can attest on the line, but those of you who have gone through this, it's so frustrating because you feel like, what did I waste 30 minutes on the call with my BDR if you're going to ask me these same bloody questions? I think we can still take that information and use it in that opening script, right? Tell you a million things about us, 1, 2, 3, but I'd love to hear from you first. I saw in our notes, you're going through this, you're going through that. This is happening. I saw this in the press. I'd love to hear from you. Challenges, overall business issues. I'd love to hear it from your perspective, if that's okay. Just showing that you've done your homework. Show me you know me is part of that. Taking those notes goes such a long way. So great work. It might seem normal. I assure you it's not. So great job on that front too, Rob. Okay.
I wasn't going to show you the CRM today. If that's something that you do want to see, I can show you on a high level. But from my, I think the best kind of course of action would be to dig a little bit deeper into your use case and then sort of set up a really specific product demo for you. And we could do that. We could turn around on that pretty quick, like Monday of next week. But how does that sound?
Yeah, no, that all sounds great. I'd prefer to see more of a tailored demo. I understand these things can be taken in a million different directions based off of user needs. So kind of generic demos don't really do you any good.
We're going to run a few minutes over, so feel free to stay if you can. I would just want to point out a couple really good things and then one source of opportunity for Rob. you'll just hear one thing if you didn't pick it up. How does that sound? This is great language to use on the next call with the demo. This is where you want to set an agenda, especially if there's new people, especially if you're multi-threaded and you haven't met them yet. Missy, you expressed to me last time that this is what you want to see. I'm going to take you through 1, 2, 3. Let me pause there. How does that sound? Or anybody that's new on the phone, anything you specifically wanted to see maybe that I didn't cover? You also need to be prepared to pivot, because if they say, we'd really love to see your analytics, and you're like, well, I'm not prepared with that in my deck, we're not going to look so great. So be ready to do that pivot. Also, if you're new and you're like, I don't know how to do that, bring an SC, bring another rep on the phone, have your leader join, hopefully who knows how to demo your product and can help you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because realistically, for you know, an organization like yours, I want to go in there and show you how this thing can, if you're looking at a full sort of platform deal, like having, you know, marketing, service, the CRM, and App Connect, which is our integration engine, in play. You know, we could go in there and show you something that would be very, very sort of specific to your use case. And I think that would be a much better use of both of our time. So we can spend some time kind of peeling back the onion today, and then, you know, based on what I've learned, I can go forward and, you know, use it to tailor that product demo for you. So just to kind of let you know, typically, you know, these calls go one of two ways. Number one, we decide together that Insightly might not be the best fit. I doubt that's going to happen based on, you know, the call that I listened to. But then number two,
the call that I listened to, I took the time to listen to the call that you already had with my BDR. Awesome.
We decide together that it is a good fit, and we would move forward with a product demo. And realistically, the product demo is just one step in a sequence of steps, right? So I like to reserve around 5. That is something that we routinely hear, right? So I think one of the things that I really want to emphasize about our product, about our offering versus the competition, is that we have something that's called Premier Success. So what does that mean for you?
I think actually, yeah, we did some editing here. I want to just talk about a few things here. One of the things that you'll find, right, is we got into a bunch of the call without really starting to get to it. So I think that's one important thing. I think another important thing is that we don't have here, but the kind of questions that we started with Rob were pretty narrow. So again, broader the better. Whatever it is that we really want to know doesn't matter. I want to mention just a few things before we wrap up. Rob, A, you're awesome. B, you closed this deal, right? It came in?
I did, yeah.
All right, way to go. Awesome, awesome stuff there. I want to just say two things. In this Premier Success piece that Rob's about to talk about, he talks about Premier Success, right? This overarching amazing amount of support that Insightly gives. And so when we talk about that, what the buyer actually ends up saying is he says, here's product specific features that I need, right? It needs to work for different departments. It needs to do this. And the way that Rob answers is like, it basically says on lines of, yeah, that's what we'll do. Here's a great place for us to story tell, right? To really come in above and beyond. The one thing I want to mention, a really great part towards the end, is Rob used language that we always talk about at samsales. As he started to wrap up the call, right, to try and multi-thread, to try and get to those next steps, he said, why don't we do this? And I want to emphasize this as kind of our closing point. Here, I'll stop our share. When you think about these words, right, why don't we do this? Instead of him saying something awful and salesy of the next steps are, he said, why don't we do this? It's casual, it's conversational, right? It also makes that person, from a psychological perspective, think that they're getting something, right? You have a bad meal. Why don't we do this? Let's comp your bill. You have a bad stay somewhere. Why don't we do this? Let's comp one of your nights. When you hear that language, semantics matter, and it really changes psychology, where they think they're getting something awesome that you're putting together, and we're really getting the awesome thing because we're booking another call. So just think about a few things. Tour of our technology, right? Why don't we do this? Some words that were really killer there. Rob, anything else? I know we're running out of time. We are out of time. Anything else you wanted to highlight about this call that you thought was really important, or a good opportunity, just kind of thinking back about the call, that others can learn from your end?
Yes. So I have the fortune of working with an amazing enablement team. I'm sure they're on this call right now. But they're always, you know, watching our calls, dissecting what we're doing, kind of offering suggestions. A couple things, I think you were kind of getting there, but one of the things that I think I failed to do is use customer stories in a sort of a narrative way to kind of reinforce some of these concepts. I'm not talking about them from such like a theoretical sort of standpoint, like kind of threading in those customers that have seen success using something like the Premier Success Program, as opposed to just laying out what that is, right? So I think I've learned a lot from calls like this and been able to kind of add on to the way that I kind of run the discoveries now.
I think that's awesome. The storytelling is so important. If you think about that, if you go to a trainer and say, I want to gain 20 pounds of muscle or lose 20 pounds, and they say, we can totally help you do that, sign here. Is that going to be impactful? As impactful as saying, you remind me of this bride before her wedding who wanted to do this. And here's a picture I can share of what she looked like before. And here's what I was able to do with her in 6 weeks, right? The visuals, the story, the how you work together, that's what really matters. And that's what gets people excited. I think great point there. I think just thank you again. Really, really awesome. Thanks for shouting out to your enablement team. If anybody's looking for a job and Insightly's hiring, sounds like things are great over there. But really awesome of you to do, because so few people ever thank their enablement team. So thanks for being such a good sport and just be a good human. And I hope it is warm in Canada right now.
Yeah, it's not as bad as negative 24 Fahrenheit, I'll tell you that much, but.
Thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks guys for putting up with my fast talking. Hope this was a really good use for everybody. I cannot wait to hear your successes from what you learned today. Thanks guys. Bye Rob. Thank you. Have a good one guys.
Bye.
Happy weekend.
Take care.
Bye.